Hello and welcome back to Emma's ESL English. Today our video is going to be in two parts. I'm going to tell you the first part just now and then I'm going to report the second part when I get home. Yesterday was Beatrix Potter's birthday. So in today's episode I want to talk about Beatrix Potter. She was a very famous British writer and businesswoman, and I also want to read a little bit from her most famous book. So that'll be the second part of the video. I'm not going to read the whole thing, I'll just read a little bit. But first of all, I want to tell you who she is, because Beatrix is cool. Beatrix is one of my favorite historic British women. If you want to know even more about Beatrix, there was a movie with Renee Zellweger about Beatrix Potter's life. It's literally called Beatrix Potter. It was very good, actually. It hit most of the important points. As you guys know, I live near the Lake District, and you will also see in the movie that Beatrix lived in the Lake District for the later part of her life. So you will see a lot of the Lake District, and you can see all of the mountains and things like that. So it's very nice just for the views. It's in London for the first part, so that's quite nice too. But yeah, there's a lot of British scenery in the movie. It's a pretty good movie, even though she's American. I don't know why they picked an American to play a British person, but never mind. Beatrix is one of my favorite historical British women for two reasons. First, she is an inspiring person, without a doubt. And second, my niece is named after her. Very good naming choices from my brother. So Beatrix Potter was born on the 28th of July, 1866, and she passed away in 1943 at age 77. She lived an extremely unusual life for the time period, built her own wealth, and left quite a legacy for the British people. Beatrix was born into the upper middle class, so they had money, but they were a merchant family. The expectation was that she would just get a good education and then marry well. Her mother was not very impressed with her choices. Her father owned a printing works and later he became an MP. So they weren't upper class, actually. You know, in the UK we have quite a class system. And so this was the upper middle class in the sense that they had money, but they made their money, whereas the upper class just gets it. They just get born with it. So there is a distinction. At least at this time period, merchants rarely married the upper class. Because of her father, perhaps it was an awareness of the printing industry that helped Beatrix become such a renowned businesswoman. She began drawing and painting early in her life as a kid, and she continued this throughout her life. Her first book, Peter Rabbit, started life as a letter to a friend's child who was sick. It was an effort to cheer them up. The letter was passed around and admired, and soon Beatrix decided to print it to make it into a book. Becoming an author was quite challenging for a woman at this period of time. The publishing houses didn't take her seriously at all, and when she finally found one that would print her book, that sort of wasn't the end of the problem. They got frustrated with what they saw as her pickiness and stubbornness in detail. Beatrix wanted the book to be small, and she wanted it to fit into children's hands, which was quite different to children's books of the time. She didn't want a lot of words on the page, so you'll see in a normal Beatrix Potter book there's a small piece of writing and a lot of white around the page. She didn't want it to be overwhelming, which again, very different to a normal book. And she wanted lots of pictures in the book, which she painted, and she wanted the colors to be just right. This was really difficult for the publishing houses at the time. So for the pictures to be just right, they worked really, really hard. Finally, the book was printed and it quickly sold out. Then a reprint was ordered and that sold out. Then another one and that sold out. Beatrix went on to write 22 storybooks, 2 nursery rhyme books, and many other different kinds of books and painting books for children. She quickly became famous and pretty wealthy. Although Beatrix grew up in the city, the family had often traveled on holidays. Her favorite place that they traveled to was the Lake District, near where I live. Over the course of her life, Beatrix bought quite a few farms in the Lake District and a lot of land. She moved to the Lake District and she lived there. She ended up getting married there and settling down in the Lake District. And in her later life, she didn't write nearly as much as she did when she was younger. She became a farmer. Beatrix also studied mushrooms and painted and identified types of mushrooms. And again, she became quite famous in this field for her very detailed paintings that were really helpful for science. Beatrix became very well known in the Lake District and was a well-respected farmer and landowner. When she died, Beatrix left most of her property to the newly created National Trust. She is almost solely responsible for helping to maintain the character of the Lake District for future generations through reducing property building and supporting and maintaining traditional farming culture. The Lake District that you see now is very, very similar to what Beatrix lived in, because she gave it to the National Trust and the National Trust preserved it. At the time, a lot of people wanted to move there. They wanted to have houses there. We do have a huge number of holiday houses in the Lake District. It is a problem, but it still is pretty as it is, partly because Beatrix bought a lot of land and protected it during her life and after her life. Beatrix continues to be well known nearly 80 years after her death. Peter Rabbit has been made into movies, TV shows, and has merchandise available worldwide. Most children in the UK still grow up reading about Peter Rabbit, Mrs. Tiddlywink, and Jemima Puddle Duck. Each character carefully brought to life in Beatrix's tiny paintings, and behind them, the scenery of the Lake District, her most beloved home. So, let's read a little from her most famous book, The Tale of Peter Rabbit. We're not starting at the beginning, we're just reading a little bit from the middle of the book. So Peter Rabbit is this very famous bunny rabbit with his blue coat on, which is a new blue coat that his mother bought him. He was told by his mother the one place he wasn't to go, into Mr. McGregor's garden. And where does he go? Into Mr. McGregor's garden. I mentioned before we have the hand-painted pictures, but also the writing didn't take up a lot of the page. And it's quite a small book compared to a normal size book. So these were specially made to fit into little hands. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away into Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. First he ate some lettuces and some French beans. Then he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But round the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor. Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages, and the other shoe amongst the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have got away altogether if he had not, unfortunately, run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. We'll end there. If you want to know the rest of the story, you'll have to get the book out of the library. See you next time.